My guest this week is CEO of the PPC Machine, David Miles, and we're talking about digital marketing, but specifically more around Google Ads for financial services. Welcome to the Mortgage Broker Broadcast with me, Craig Skelton. Join me every week where I'll be developing your knowledge to help you build a successful mortgage broker business. So my guest this week is CEO of the PPC Machine, David Miles, and we're talking about digital marketing in financial services, but more specifically around Google Ads. So welcome to the podcast, David. How are you?
I'm great. Really good to be here. Thanks for having me on, Craig.
Good. No, I really appreciate you accepting the invite to be on the podcast. I know a bit about, we've had a few chats before about what you do and why you do it, but I think it's just a great thing to sort of share with the mortgage brokers that are already mortgage brokers who listen to the podcast. And there's a lot of people that listen to the podcast as well that are looking to become mortgage brokers. So I think the world of digital marketing is always one that scares them the most, and things like, where am I going to get the leads from if they're going from employed to self-employed? It's always that question I get asked of, where am I going to get my leads? And so it just sort of fitting nicely to talk about what you do. And I think it will give a lot of value to the people that listen to the podcast, just to explain there is help and support out there and with generating leads, but more importantly, working with digital marketing as a whole. But I know we're going to sort of specifically talk about Google Ads today, because that's more of your specialist subject, shall we say?
Yeah, that's right. And I think it's what you said there about the marketing being the scary bit or whatever it's very true. I wrote an article the other day, and I actually put in there one of the things that it seems they don't teach you at mortgage broker school is how to actually get the clients. Teach you what to do with the clients once you've got them, and they go into that in great detail and with all the exams and everything, but they seem to miss out that bit of, I can't give someone mortgage advice until I've got someone sat in front of me, and how do I do that bit? So hopefully that's
the greatest broker in the world, but if I'm not seeing clients, I'm absolutely useless.
Exactly, yeah. So hopefully that's the bit that the gap that I try and plug for people.
Definitely. So do you want to do an introduction of yourself, of like what you are, what you do, and your background, really?
Yeah, so I sort of sum myself up as a digital marketing consultant, trainer, coach, and author, really. And so I do help people with all aspects of digital marketing. But as you said, my specialism is in something called Google Ads, which, for anyone who doesn't know what it is, it's the thing that used to be called Google AdWords until a few years ago, and it's the system that puts those paid ads at the top of the Google search results whenever you search for something. And it's referred to as PPC, pay per click advertising, because unlike most ads where you pay for your advert to appear, with Google Ads, you don't pay for your ad to appear. You only pay if someone sees your ad and then clicks on it and goes through to your website. So you're only paying for, a degree of response rather than just the impression of the ad appearing. In terms of how I got into this, I started my career a long while ago in IT, doing sort of infrastructure projects and freelancing for big companies like Shell and Diageo. This is back in the late 90s, like in the run up to the Millennium Bug, if any of your listeners are old enough to remember that. After a few years, I kind of got fed up with that, and this opportunity presented itself to buy into my then IFA's business. So I bought half his IFA business, not with a view to being an IFA or a mortgage broker myself, but to go in and deal with all the IT side of things, all the web side of things, all the marketing, all the operations. Quite a big remit looking back on it, but I was young and foolish and whatever. and so, I obviously learned a lot of stuff very quickly. This is 2003. So, the internet, it's been around for a while, but it's still only really, this is when people, home users, were just starting to get broadband and, always on internet connection. So it was that kind of, growth period of it. So I very quickly had to learn how to create websites that would generate leads and how to get people to those websites as well. And that's when I discovered Google Ads, or AdWords as it was then, as an ideal way to do that. And since then, I've been in digital marketing. I've had my own agency. I've sold my share in that a few years ago, started this business, and I'd always done a lot of training and stuff as well on different digital marketing topics and things. When I started this business about 5 years ago, it was deliberately a small business with just me. So I thought, I need to have a niche. So I'm not trying to, I can't market to the whole world when it's just me. So I thought, well, financial services is the obvious thing to niche into, kind of go back to where it all started. And so since then, I've been helping mortgage brokers and IFAs primarily to use Google Ads and other online marketing systems to generate leads from their own websites. And up until the pandemic, that was all kind of one-to-one, either me doing it all for them or going and training them how to do it themselves. And then the pandemic hit, and I thought, well, now's as good a time as any to do what I've often talked about, which is taking my training and turning it into online training. And then from that, develop this membership coaching program for brokers. And so that's what I do now. Basically, I've got the two sides to the business. I've got some one-to-one clients and some where they're learning it from me through this membership. So.
Okay, that's a great background and totally understand. I'm thinking back to the days of when the dial-up times of the sort of when you used to connect to the internet, and I'm thinking that I worked in a firm at the time that was very .com based, and as with a lot of .com firms, went under fairly quickly, but the concept was great. The first round of funding was amazing, the second round was okay, and then the third round just didn't exist, and it went thing from there. But I can remember those times of I am old enough to remember the millennium bug and the dial-up and the birth of the internet and stuff like that. But it's really, like, to be fair, you was into it really early then, weren't you? Really, when you looking back, you was probably one of the pioneers with looking at all these sorts of things, because there's a lot of mortgage firms that I know now that will not even know what Google Ads stood for. Whereas if you're thinking back in 2003, you said that's like 18 years ago. Wow, like you will have seen times change a fair bit, I'm guessing.
Yeah, massively. I mean, I think at that time, Google Ads itself was only about 2 years old, I think, at that point. So, it was still relatively new. The cost per click was way, way lower than it is now because no one else had discovered it and stuff. But I mean, it still works the same way today, and it's still, I think it's one of, and this is part of the reason why I sort of do what I do, is there's always been this perception, I think, that Google Ads is like really, really expensive, or only big companies can use it. But what I've seen over the years, not just in financial services, but when I was doing more sort of public training courses, I had all kinds of different people coming along to do training courses on learning Google Ads from me, is the beauty of it is it can work for any size business. So it actually allows even really quite small businesses to compete, on, if not the world stage, compete either dominating their local area or compete on the whole national stage and whatever, because there's always opportunities there. There's always keywords you can find that other people aren't bidding on. There's always ways you can write your advert better to get more people clicking on your advert, because you can be a huge company, but if you've got a rubbish advert that appears in front of the wrong people, you're not going to do as well as a one-man band business that's really put the effort into writing a great ad and targeting exactly the right people. And I think that's the beauty of it. It's it's not that David and Goliath kind of thing. It is David and Goliath, but because David wins.
Yeah, I think that's it. I see a lot of firms that throw a lot of money at Google Ads and pack in, for want of a better word, and don't have the persistence and thinking, it's just a waste of money, it's not working. I talk quite a bit about patience, you've got to have patience with Google Ads, and I'm no expert. That's just my viewpoint on it from running my own firm I'm running Google Ads for the last 4 years. But obviously you're the expert on that. But do you find that a lot of people don't have the sort of patience to run the Google Ad campaign, would want them to?
It's you do have to give it a bit of time. I mean, it's a bit of it's ironic really that on the one hand you don't need patience, because if you kick off a Google Ads campaign, your ads will be at the top of Google within hours normally. So you don't need patience from that point of view. Where you do need patience is, and this is where people go wrong. So I'll let you into a secret. Actually getting a Google ad to appear and get people to click on it is actually not difficult. The difficult bit is getting that ad to appear in front of the right kind of people, and making sure that when they come to your website is designed in a way that it's going to convert those visitors into inquiries. And this is where the lack of patience comes in, is because people don't have the patience, they go and kick off a Google Ads campaign before they've done those foundation things of thinking, what sort of niche am I going to go into? Who's my ideal customer? Who am I really trying to target? And then at the other end of the chain, does my website actually say anything different from all the thousands of other mortgage brokers out there? And if someone lands on my site, is there a reason why we're going to think, yes, I must deal with this person rather than any of the other brokers that I could find on Google? So that's where the lack of patience is people's downfall, I think, really.
So I think from my understanding, because I'm a very process person, I understand what the process is. Once I understand the process, then I think from what you're saying is that the process of setting up Google Ads, if you've not got the website, the landing page, all the other infrastructure behind it, it's just pointless, because you'll get the clicks onto your website, but they might not necessarily be people looking for a mortgage or looking for your services. And then if the landing page is not right, they're then not going to look at inquiring and dealing with you, because so it's okay, like you said, throwing loads of money at the Google Ads, but if the foundations behind that are not right, I'm thinking I need to get, like, from a process point of view, I need to get my website sorted out, I need to get my landing pages sorted out, I need to get my AdWords sorted out, and then I can look at my campaigns. Am I missing bits out there? Is that about?
No, exactly. I mean, I'm a great lover of using analogies. And the analogy I often use about this is, imagine you were opening a shop on your local high street, and so you've got your brand new shop, and you go out and you put loads of billboards up around town. You hire someone to stand on the street corner with a sign on a stick saying "You shop this way," all those kinds of things, but you haven't actually put any of your stock on the shelves yet or cleared any of the rubbish off the floor of your shop. You wouldn't do that. And yet that's what people often do with Google Ads and other online advertising as well. They start running the ads because that's the relatively easy bit, but they haven't actually got the shop in order, first of all, and they haven't decided who they want those ads to appear in front of. Because, there's a big, to give an example of what I mean with that, there's a big difference, isn't there, between someone who goes onto Google and searches for cheapest mortgage rates. They're not showing much intent to use the services of a broker or an advisor. Whereas someone who goes onto Google and let's say they live in Kendal, up your way, they go on and they type in mortgage broker Kendal, they're showing far much more intent. They've actually used the word broker in there. They want someone else to do this for them. They're clearly looking for someone in your local area. So, by focusing on those kind of keywords rather than those more generic tire kicker ones, you're going to get more results. And taking that a stage further, the reason I always encourage clients of mine, whether they're one-to-one or they're in my group coaching, I always encourage them to go into one or two niches within the mortgage sector. So, again, someone who searches for mortgages for doctors, they are going to be a far more likely to do something because they're looking for something very specific and they're looking for a specialist. And also there'll be less other brokers bidding on that keyword, so the price of it will be lower. So if you can have a niche where you say, I'm going to target these people, I'm going to have an advert that talks specifically about the benefits I can offer for doctors and all that kind of thing, and then I have a landing page that talks about mortgages for doctors specifically, you're carrying that relevance all the way through.
And that does make sense because, like you say, at least then it is more relevant from start to finish. It makes total sense. And I think, like, the campaigns that we run and how that works, I do understand. Obviously, you're going to add so much sort of benefit to the listeners and things like that about the Google ads, and that you've already sort of alluded a little bit to. But if we take a step back a little bit and talk about, you said a little bit about the business models with PPC. What is it that you do, and like what's your typical broker or firm that you work with?
Okay, so in terms of what I do, really, it's about creating that system which is going to bring the right people to the website and then convert them into leads once they get there. So what I do, either doing it for people or training and coaching them how to do it themselves, is we identify who the ideal target client is, and we look at those kind of niches and we work out what the business's value proposition is and what makes them different. Then we set up and run the Google Ads campaigns to attract those kind of people. And we make sure that we're sending them to pages on the website which use all the right kind of, there's a thing in the digital marketing world called conversion rate optimization, CRO, which is all about doing things, often quite subtle things, to the design or layout of a website or a landing page to increase the chances of it generating a conversion, generating an inquiry. And one of the things I find most interesting about it is there's a lot of psychology behind this stuff. So very often just, changing the wording on a button, or changing what a headline says, or just rewriting the copy a bit on the page can make a big difference to whether someone who lands there stays on the page and whether they take the desired action. So the elements of what I'm doing are creating most. I'm not a web designer, but what I do is I specify what needs to be on the page and in what order, and then I work with the client's own web designer to make that page, or I bring in a web designer if they haven't got one, and then I set up and run the Google Ads campaigns. And then with actually any of the clients, whether they're one-to-one or through the coaching program, I also advise on all the other aspects, because that's what, the Google Ads is just one channel. But if you really want it to work well, you should be doing all the other stuff in the background, posting good stuff on LinkedIn, using perhaps Facebook ads to retarget people who came to your website and didn't make an inquiry to try and bring them back, all those kind of things. So I look at the overall picture and manage the whole strategy, but the bit I actually do hands-on is driving the traffic with the Google Ads and creating the landing pages that will convert them.
The one thing that I find with a lot of firms and a lot of brokers is, because if you can take away the friction, and I talk a lot about this, taking away the friction of having to do something. So actually, we'll talk about the training program in a second, absolutely. But for you taking control of their Google Ads and taking control of that, and understanding from your experience of the years you've had of experience and how things are changing, particularly in the financial services world with Google Ads as well. But you're going to be dealing with that and taking that sort of friction away from them, that they can then continue to look at their other side of things, like their Instagram or the LinkedIn or the Twitter or whatever you want to call it, even TikTok. There is mortgage brokers on TikTok now. So if they can because I see that differently, correct me if I'm wrong, but I see with things like LinkedIn, Facebook and Twitter and the Instagram, it's not really, I don't look at ads from that point of view. I think I just use that as information and sharing information about the firm. There's no sort of sell on there, shall we say. It's all about sharing the information. Whereas with Google Ads, it is very much a sell from my point of view. That's what it's an advertisement that you're paying for. There is an ad that you're selling your services, and you're getting clicks through to the website, which in turn you want to lead to inquiries. And I think that's where. Sorry.
Yeah, the reason is because you're right. The Google ad is more of a selling message, but that's fine because of the different people who are seeing it. So if you think about the way a Google ad works, someone will only see your Google ad if they have taken the trouble to sit down at Google and type in something that indicates they're looking to buy your kind of product or service. So they've kind of already put their hand up and said, I'd like to be sold to. Whereas on social media, you're quite right. People don't go there to look at ads. They don't go there to be sold to. The clue's in the name: social media, social networking. So when you run ads on Facebook, for example, and I know a lot of mortgage brokers think or they've been told that Facebook ads are the way to go because it's really cheap clicks and cheap leads and whatever. Yeah, they are cheaper, but they're lower quality, because no one goes on Facebook to look for a mortgage or to look for a pension or to look for anything like that, really. They go on Facebook to see what their friends are up to see what the grandkids have been doing, to look at pictures of cats, whatever it is. They're not there to be sold to. And so although things like Facebook have fantastic targeting, if you want to show your ad to women who are aged between 30 and 40 who like these particular bands or watch these particular TV shows, yeah, you can do it. So you can really narrow down your targeting. But the point is, you're still showing the ad at a point when they don't have their buying hat on. So even if they do click on the ad, they're less likely to respond. And there are things you can do with that. You can instead of trying to go straight for the sale or for the inquiry, you can try and offer them some kind of useful free guide they can download in return for their email address. And then you can do follow-up email to nurture them until they're ready. But it's always a slower burn. So the way I think social media fits into it is from that social networking kind of angle, that building up your personal brand. You shouldn't expect to go onto LinkedIn and immediately get business from it. In the same way, I always say, if you want to know what to do on social media, whether that's Facebook, LinkedIn, particularly LinkedIn, because that's what most of my clients seem to be, use the most or ask me about the most, is treat it like it's a real world networking event. you wouldn't expect to turn up to a Chamber of Commerce meeting or a BNI meeting or 4N or something like that, walk into your very first meeting and get business straight away. And you wouldn't expect to just go around the room going, hello, I'm a mortgage broker, have my card, buy a mortgage. I'm a mortgage broker, have my card, buy a mortgage. You just wouldn't do it. Okay, or if you did, it wouldn't be very successful. And yet people think that will work on LinkedIn, even though that is also networking, social networking. So you should do the same thing you're doing there. You're posting stuff that is of use and of value to your target audience, asking questions, asking for people's opinions. So you're just starting conversation and dialogue. And if you do all that kind of thing, then you're building up personal brand, and it supports your more direct selling that you're doing with things like Google Ads. Because then when someone sees your Google ad and they click on it, they go to your website, they go, oh yeah, that's Craig. I remember chatting to him on LinkedIn. He was a good guy. Yeah, I'll fill in an inquiry. And they might not have those thoughts consciously, but that's what's going on subconsciously, which again is where the whole psychology of marketing, starts to come into play as well. Sorry, that was a very long answer. I'm not sure if it's answered your question or whether I rambled off onto something entirely different.
To be fair, David, there's loads of things like in my mind, in my head, like there's a lot of things sort of going on, thinking, and like the questions I would be asking was, because I never thought of LinkedIn that way, in that concept with regards to a BNI or like some networking event that you're attending, because like you said, you wouldn't just go in and go, here's my card, I'm a mortgage broker, this is what I do, and get business from that straight away. But like I said, but there are people that do that, because I think that's like the BNI. Like I think you get. I've never been to. I can honestly say I've never attended a BNI meeting or a networking event in that sort of format which you subscribe to. I know some people that use it and some people use it very well. But I think again, it's that people go to that, they get the first one free, or it's £10 for the first one or something like that. They go for the first time and then never go back again. It's the same. It's a similar sort of concept, thinking with the Google Ads, thinking, well, I've placed an ad now, I should have loads of leads coming through, so I'm not going to place anymore. And it's like, you've got to do a bit of courting, you've got to do a bit of relationship building and branding and stuff like that. But I think one of the questions that sort of sparked in my mind from what you sort of said is, would you treat your face, so if you were looking to post on LinkedIn, would that be a different post to what you say would be on Facebook? Would you look at different things that you're doing from a personal brand point of view?
I think it depends a bit upon the kind of followers you've got and who you're trying to attract and connect with. Because don't get some people, for example, in the mortgage sector, some people on LinkedIn are more interested in making professional connections, like estate agents and other introducers, than they are in clients. But yeah, you obviously can tailor your content more. I mean, although I don't think there's a clear distinction, but LinkedIn is a little bit more businessy. Facebook is definitely a lot more kind of, this is people on their downtime. So you probably post more kind of, humorous, non-formal stuff on Facebook. But that's not to say that I'm not a believer in having personal stuff on LinkedIn as well. In fact, someone, I forget who it was now, but within the last few weeks, somebody ran some kind of poll on LinkedIn asking basically, should people, post more or less about their personal lives and stuff on LinkedIn? And I said, absolutely, they should be doing it, because, it's that age-old thing. People buy from people, and they buy from people that they know, like, and trust. And so if you just are posting, just corporate stuff of Joe Blogs mortgages, and, and there's no personality coming through, who's interested in that? Whereas, the mortgage brokers that if someone said to me, name some mortgage brokers on LinkedIn, the names that will pop into my head are the people who post occasional pictures of their kids, or who post things like the fact that they've just taken a massive freezer box of ice creams into their local school as a thank you for the teachers or the kids or something like that. Those are the kinds of things that stick in your mind. I can't tell you the names of the people who are posting the fact that HSBC have just brought out a new rate and your home is at risk if you do not keep up repayments. My general advice on these things is, if you need to put a risk warning on it, you probably shouldn't be posting it in the first place, because it probably means it's boring. So yeah, I would say adopt a fairly similar approach on Facebook, but perhaps just be, even more towards the less formal stuff on Facebook than, the kind of posts that get the best interaction. And when you say to people like, it's a great Friday afternoon, I'm knocking off early, I'm going to sit in the garden and have a glass of wine, have a glass of gin and tonic. What's your favorite Friday afternoon drink. You'll get far more response and engagement from that than you will from posting about mortgages. And it doesn't matter if it's off topic. It's all getting your name out there. And the whole point of this is that not everyone needs a mortgage now. However great you are, the majority of people you speak to are either not buying a house at the moment or are not coming to the end of a fixed rate deal or whatever. So they don't, however brilliant you are, they do not need you now. What your networking is about, whether it's social networking online or the face-to-face BNI, 4N, whatever kind of stuff, is about getting into people's heads. So as when they do need you, they don't even bother going to Google. They just go, yeah, now's the time to go and talk to Craig about that mortgage. And I know he's a good guy, and I know that we both like the same kind of wine, so that's even better.
It's a start of a conversation.
Exactly.
It's an easy rapport building. It's definitely a rapport building around the wine than it is about, like I said, the 95% deal and who's offering that best rate at the moment. So exactly. So when you look at, I understand now the two business models that you have, and where you take ownership of and control of one, and then you've got the program. Just to really, we'll come on to the program in a second, because in terms of, and I'm going to ask you the same question with both the program and the thing, and it might be the same answer, but in terms of when you're taking control of the Google ads and you are running the ads and working with these, does it tend to be large firms? Are there sole traders on there that you work with? Is it a mixture of everything in between? Yeah,
it varies. I mean, I've had on the one-to-one stuff, I've had everything. I've done that with sole trader firms. I've done it with ones with, they've got 10 or 15 brokers in the team. I would say the majority are sort of firms where there's 2 or 3 advisors, or maybe, there's a couple of mortgage brokers and there's an IFA in the practice as well. So it's that kind of size. But I mean, one of the, I had a client last year who I worked with on a one-to-one basis, and he was the sole advisor, and it was actually an IFA rather than just a mortgage broker. But we agreed that mortgages were the best way to open the door and to get leads from his website, because when someone's looking for mortgages, you'll know, and all your listeners will know, if someone's looking for a mortgage, they've got a built-in sense of urgency. They've got an incentive to take action and get on with it because they've seen their dream house, or they're about to switch onto an expensive SVR at the end of a deal or whatever. Whereas if someone's looking for investment advice or pensions or whatever, they can always put that off because retirement years away, or they can put off buying life insurance because they're not going to die tomorrow, and all that sort of thing. So we focused it on the mortgage. I set the whole thing up for him. We found a niche that was going to work well for him and was going to give him the opportunity to get follow-on business on the IFA side of things. That creates leads. It's still running now, creating leads for sort of £20 to £25 each, and he's converting about 1 in 5 of them. When people say, "Oh, Google Ads is expensive," I always refer them to those kind of case studies, because the people who say Google Ads is expensive are the ones who are looking at the cost per click, and they go, "Oh, £4 a click, £5 a click, whatever. That's really expensive." Well, okay, maybe it is, but that's not what you should look at. You should look at, how many clicks do I need to get X number of leads, and out of those X number of leads, how many will I convert? And if you're getting leads for £20 each and you're converting 1 in 5 of them, if that's costing you £5 a click, doesn't matter, does it? Because it's actually what's the cost per acquisition of the client and how much money are you making back on that. And in any industry, if the cost per click is quotes high, that's only because the market will support it. The bidding in Google Ads, or the cost per click in Google Ads works on a bidding model. So each advertiser says how much they're willing to pay per click as a maximum, and then Google runs an auction every time there's a search and decides which ads to show in which order. Well, like any auction, the cost can only get to that level if everyone's prepared to bid that, and people are prepared to bid that because the ones who are doing it right are making way more money back, from doing that. And I look at it that way, and I think I know a lot of people that don't look at that. They sort of see it as they'll log on to the Google ad campaign and say, yesterday they spent £30 or whatever the figure is, whatever that figure is that they just think, well, that's just £30. I just wasted. What did we get from that? And it's looking at, rather than, if you could do in Google, it's like the same with
one thing I want to talk to you about is something that I believe in regarding sort of create rather than buy. And because one of the things is when you're sort of buying leads and stuff like that, it's a similar sort of concept that you can go to any lead provider and sort of pay £50 a lead, £60 a lead. They don't know who you are. They don't know who your brand is. They don't know who, like, your Trustpilot scores. They don't know really anything about you. They've not chosen you. You've been thrust upon them because that's who's paid the most for that lead or who's bought that lead at that time. Where, like, and with Google, you've got to sort of not have the mindset of the cost, and like I say, you've got to see that end result. You've got, like, and I judge we have a spend on Google. We spend Google ads as a firm. The brokerage that I run, we have a Google ad campaign. We spend on Google, but I just manage that on the what we've written, what business we've got on the back of it, whether that and how that business has converted in terms of where it's come from, and then also as well, has it gone, it's okay writing it, has it actually gone through to completion as well and being paid on it. And it's those sort of things you've got to look at, because then if you're looking at that machine and sort of thinking, right, I'm going to put, and this is just my viewpoint, David, you are far greater expert than I am, but it's just a simple way that I look at it is, if I put £1 in that machine and it feeds back out £2, I'm going to keep feeding that machine. I'm going to keep doing that.
No, it's exactly the same analogy I use when I'm training people on it. It's why would you stop feeding that machine until you'd run out of hours in the week, to deal with the business?
Yeah, exactly. What are you like in terms of? And like I say, I appreciate your answer in terms of, like, you obviously do work with the different firms and various different walks of life from a financial services point of view. And one thing that I'm thinking about here is one thing that I do get asked quite a bit about, and probably is for another podcast or something, is like, because a lot of firms who are good at mortgages or are looking to get into the financial advice world or the IFA world don't see their mortgages as their catalyst to then generate leads for their IFA business. They just go out there and try and buy IFA leads because they think, well, I'll go and so I've seen firms that have gone to, they've created this model that you're talking about, where you build your brand, you've got your pay-per-click, you generate leads with Google and things like that, and then you've got these clients, and they forget about those clients that they have in-house to then, and they go back and replicate that from an IFA point of view, whereas I'm very much a point of, yes, that's okay doing that, but I'm a very pro about working with those clients that are bought into your brand, that you've already clicked through on the mortgage, you already know who you are as a firm, know your processes, know the advisors, know what your values are and all those sorts of things. And they seem to miss those, which is quite interesting that you've talked about that, because there's very few people that I actually talk to, if any, that sort of talk in a similar sort of language with regards to the mortgage as the catalyst to get the IFA business.
Definitely. I mean, the way I look at it is, if suppose, you focus, let's say pensions, right? Suppose you focus on the pension side of things. There's the issue we talked about of less urgency, because, if someone's looking to start a pension, they can always put that off. But also, there's actually a lot more trust needed, isn't there, to get someone to do your pension? Because if someone does your pension for you and they're a rubbish advisor and they do the whole thing wrong, you can actually lose a load of money. Okay? Whereas if someone messes up your mortgage, okay, you're not going to be happy, and you might lose out on getting the house you wanted, or you might be able to borrow something, but you haven't actually lost potentially your life savings. So there's a lot more trust needed with the pension side of things. But, from a cold, brand new inquiry, if you're a pension advisor. So that's the other reason why I say do the mortgage first, because not only does the client have that greater sense of urgency that we talked about earlier on, but it gives you a chance to prove that you know what you're talking about and you can do a good job, because you do their mortgage and you actually deliver a tangible result, relatively quickly. They get into their house, or they get their cheaper rate or whatever. And then they'll trust you. Whereas if you do the pension, they don't see the outcome of that for perhaps 30, 40 years. So the mortgage is a nice sort of, gateway to doing the thing that requires more trust and where there's more at risk and where it's going to be longer for the client to see the outcome. Even just on a really simple level, you're going to get a positive review from that client quicker because they can give you a positive review for their mortgage because they got the outcome. But when do you ask someone for a positive review on some pension advice? Do you wait 30 years till they retire and then go back and say, well, now you've got a nice retirement income, can I have a review, please?
Exactly.
So that's another reason for using the mortgage as the starting point, I think, with your online lead generation, even if you are an IFA who's got all these other potentially more profitable things you can do the mortgage first, even if all that does is cover the cost of your marketing, and then make sure you do everything else that goes with it. The other thing, I don't know if any of your listeners are familiar with a guy called Matthew Chapman, but I did a Facebook Live with him a while ago, and he actually then came along and did some in-depth training for my coaching program members. And he talks a lot about actually making sure that you do the income protection and and things like that before you even do the mortgage, and getting that stuff in place as well. And there's all sorts of things you can do to make that mortgage more profitable and make sure that you get maximum income from that, before you move on to the other stuff.
I had a look at that in terms of from a protection point of view, and there is, for anybody that's listening, it is well worth having a listen to that and look at sort of his concept and take on it, being the protection specialist that he is, because I think it will open the eyes of quite a lot of mortgage brokers that maybe do sell protection, but might talk about it from a sales point of view rather than an advice point of view. And I think that's the big difference with Matthew, is that he was very much about from an advice point of view rather than a sales pitch, and he was clearly passionate is something he's clearly passionate about. So you alluded a little bit there, David, about
I just suddenly remembered something you said earlier on. That was all that you talked about when we talked about the lead generation being more of a sort of courtship process. I actually there's a great quote that I forget who said it now, but I put it in the opening page of my book that says we do a lot of one night stands in lead generation and not enough long-term relationships. That is exactly what the whole thing should be about.
That is very true, very true. So like I say, you alluded a little bit there about the program. So do you want to try to explain a little bit about your program, what that's about?
So when I first was looking at creating, and doing the stuff I said that I was doing at the start of the pandemic about thinking, well, now's the time to take my training and turn it into an online course. My initial thought was just do the standard online course and everything like that. And I did do that. And then I realized that people would buy that, but they would perhaps not complete it, or in some cases they might not get around to starting it and all that. And I didn't want, that's not what I wanted, because I think there's two kinds of people who create online courses and things. There's those who just do it because they want to make money from it. And don't get me wrong, I want to make money from it, yes. But I actually also fall into the second camp of I want people to actually take this stuff and learn from it and use it in their business. Because of all the things I said before about, I think, Google Ads is underrated. And I think if people use it properly, it can absolutely change their businesses. And that's what I want to do for people. So I thought I need to stop it being just a plain course and add this kind of coaching element around it. And so that's why what I then did was reconfigured it as this membership program, where at the core of it, you've still got access to all these online courses, but at the core of it are these fortnightly group coaching sessions where all the members come on a Zoom with me, and each time I talk about a different aspect of their digital marketing. So like, a couple of months ago, I talked about the importance of something you mentioned earlier on, Craig, online reviews. And I talked about, if you want to do this, you can use Trustpilot or use Google reviews. And I gave them some tips on how to get more reviews. And then we spent the rest of the session talking about that and dealing with any other questions they've got and dealing with any questions from whatever aspect of their marketing they were working on. So it's a kind of a group surgery like that. One of the guys from that went away, put into action one of the tips he got from that coaching call, and got something like 80 more 5-star reviews in the next couple of days. And that's becoming those sort of little wins. But I know that if I just put out an online course saying this is how you get reviews or this is how you set up Trustpilot, that wouldn't have happened. It happened because we were on the call and I was able to give live training about it, and we were able to talk about it, and he went away and took action. So that's really what the program's about. It's these fortnightly group coaching calls. We cover a different topic each time. But then if someone wants to delve into the detail of it, they've got the online courses as a backup. So if I do a coaching call, I say, right, we're going to talk about Google Ads this week. Come along with your, I don't know, your challenges you've got with writing ad copy, and we'll look at different people's ads and we'll give tips and feedback and stuff. That's what the coaching call is about. But then if someone wants to know the actual ins and outs of how do you now go and put that ad into Google Ads, well, then you go and look at the training course that will step you through step by step how to do it. So that's kind of the idea. And then there's a whole support community where people can get help and support from other members or from me. So basically, it's a way of having all the online training and the hand holding for a way lower price than they'd pay for one-to-one, because obviously it's more scalable for me.
It's such a great concept. Like for somebody that is starting out or looking at, like I said, being part of, coming with the ads, coming with in a group therapy group session. I'm sorry, group therapy, but within the community, but then behind the scenes, you've got the online training to look at that and to help you with that in a bit more of a in your own time kind of thing. And I'm guessing that I know a lot of people struggle with the commitment as well, of sort of time and stuff like that, which is a big, for a lot of coaches, and I know myself, is that it's the commitment that the advisors put in, it's the time commitment that can cause an issue. Whereas a fortnightly therapy session, get together kind of thing going on, but then behind the scenes in my own time, I've got that learning, I've got that, I can then sort of see I can talk in the community in a very safe environment.
Yeah.
And behind the scenes, then I can actually go away in another safe environment and learn more about it, the technicalities of it behind the scenes in my own time and in my own space.
Yeah, exactly. And and get feedback. Just yesterday, one of our members, he's a mortgage broker in Australia. He'd been to the coaching call we did a little while ago about copywriting and writing good copy for web pages and stuff. Pinged me over a doc and said, could you have a quick look at this, give me some feedback? So I looked at it and said, yeah, pretty good, but I'd suggest changing this, and that so they can ask all those kind of questions, and get response and not feel guilty about trying to get loads of free advice or stuff like that. And it's going back to your thing about the size of businesses. I mean, that membership program, although again it will work for any size company. I've got some members where the owner of the firm has joined and then has put one of his staff in to actually be the member and go to the training and stuff. I've got lots of others where they are 1 or 2 person companies, and it's one of the owners who's the member. But yeah, it works for things of all sizes. And something I perhaps should have said when we talked about Google Ads before is you don't need huge budgets for that, because this is just reminding one of the members in the program, he shared his results from using Google Ads. It was at the end of the first quarter of this year, so it was a 3-month period. In that 3-month period, he'd spent £750 on Google Ads, so an average £250 a month, which is only a small amount. But from that £750 he'd spent, he'd already written $7.5 grand worth of business, and that was before all of it came through the pipeline. So don't go thinking that Google Ads only works if you've got thousands and thousands a month to spend on it. It can work at at all different levels.
Excellent. So I'm understanding the picture about the one-to-one. I'm getting the program that you run in, and then lastly, something you said before about author and a book. So something else that you've sort of created.
Yeah, this was again something I did at the start of the first lockdown when everything went a bit quiet for those few weeks and the property market shut and everything. And I thought, well, again, I basically pulled out that list of all those things I'd been talking about doing for years and never got around to doing, and probably never would have got around to doing if it hadn't been for COVID. So yeah, it's called Building an Automated Mortgage Lead Machine, and it's it tells you how to do that. Basically, it talks about this. It talks a lot about this theory. It's not so heavy on the Google Ads stuff. It's more around all this stuff we talked about nurturing leads and getting people to know, like, and trust you, and building those relationships, and taking people through those kind of, the thing people say that people need 7 touches with your business before they're ready to buy. It's about doing all that kind of thing and automating that. So yeah, if people are interested in that, you can buy it on the website, theppcmachine.co.uk/book. £7 as a PDF, or you can get it in good old-fashioned paperback as well. if that's your thing. But yeah, that to me, that know, like, and trust is really important. It goes back to something else you were saying earlier on, actually, as well, about when people buy leads. And I would think, if you've got a lead you generated yourself, and let's say it cost you £50 to generate that lead, which is quite high, but let's say that's what it cost, and you've bought a lead from a lead gen company for £50, even though they're the same price, you can almost guarantee the one from your own website will be better quality, because people have already had that connection with your brand. They've managed to read a bit about you on your website. They've actually chosen to talk to you / your company, whereas someone who's just been onto mortgagemeerkats.com or whatever and put their details in, they don't care who they're going to talk to. They don't know who they're going to talk to. They've just been punted across to you because you bought the lead. And I don't know about you, Craig, but I talk to a lot of mortgage brokers who buy leads. I don't think I've ever spoken to one who says they like buying leads and they really want to. They're all doing it out of necessity because they haven't got anything else in place.
Yeah. And that is such a shame, because they could be investing that money. And I get why people buy leads. I do. And when we first started out as a firm, we bought lead from whatever lead source we could. We chose various ones and we did buy them. But it was quite quickly that I understood that it just wasn't a good return on the investment. It got us quick leads, but I'd rather be spending, like you say, and you can clearly see that now, that if you bought leads and then our conversion with the direct leads we get through from Google and the campaigns we have and the organic stuff, we convert that far better, far better than a 1 in 8, 1 in 9, 1 in 10 like you do. Well, probably like 1 in 7 with the when you're buying leads in, something depending on the quality. But from a business point of view, you're on a far better conversion. So it's just a better return. It's better invested and it's a better return on your investment.
Yeah, and you haven't got so much control when you buy leads either. I mean, you can say I want this postcode, or I want remortgage, or I want first time buyers, whatever, but you can't drill down into those really specifics of I want teachers, or I want leads for people who want to get a mortgage on a thatched cottage, or whatever your specialism is. You can't get that from buying leads.
No, definitely not. And I think it wrapped around all this is something you talked about and something I'm very passionate about, is trust and the reviews and building that trust up with clients for long-term relationships. It's not, I think lead buying is just a quick, there's no loyalty there from the client. You can try and win it over. You can try and you spend a lot of time sort of doing a bit of courting with it rather than one night stand in it. But it's just, you spend a lot more time and effort. Whereas if you've got the lead yourself, it's just, it's just a better overall transaction, and they know they're more likely to come back to you because they've come to you in the first place. They've trusted you. They've given you a 5-star review. So when the remortgage deal's up, or the protection, or you're talking about pension investment, they're more likely to buy from you because they know who you are already and know and trust you.
Yeah, definitely.
So excellent. So is there anything at all that we've missed, David? Because we've covered a lot of ground there in the last hour.
No, I think we have covered a lot, haven't we? All I would say, I think, the parting message I want to give is, I know I've said to people a lot about, Google Ads is really great and you should use it if you're not. I would just like to caveat that by saying, do make sure you understand how it works beforehand, because the people who have the horror stories of losing a load of money are the ones who've kind of rushed out and done it without learning anything. So there's loads of videos on my YouTube channel that will give you, sort of step you through how to do it. I run regular webinars that are totally free on how to set up Google Ads. So depending on when this is going out, there's probably one of those coming up next week. So just just invest an hour or two of time to learn a bit about it, because Google makes it very easy for anyone to go and set up a Google Ads campaign, but they also make it very easy for you to do it the wrong way, because a lot of their default settings will put more money into Google's pocket than into your pocket. Yeah. And if that sounds cynical of me, well, tough, because it's true.
I think that is, you're absolutely right with that. It is, it will benefit them rather than benefit you from the start if you're doing it the wrong way. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So in terms of, I'm sat here now listening to this, I'm thinking, like, I need somebody to take control of my Google Ads, or I'm interested in hearing about the program, the webinars, the books. I will tag you in on the post. Like, obviously, this will go on social media. We will get tagged in on, so you'll find your contact details there. However, website address, David, I'm guessing.
Yeah, so the website address is theppcmachine.co.uk. And if you're interested in the book, just put /book on the end of that. The webinar, put /webinar. And for the predictable pipeline program, which is what the membership program is called, should have mentioned that earlier, really. Then it's the ppcmachine.co.uk/PPP for predictable pipeline program. I do also have a Facebook group as well for mortgage brokers, and IFA is totally free, private Facebook group for people who want to learn more about their marketing, and that's at mortgagebrokermarketing.co.uk.
We've got plenty of places there to, like you say, opportunities to work with you and the free stuff that you do share, and sort of building that relationship up with yourself, and then again, like trusting you to run their campaigns on a one-to-one or being part of the program. David, I appreciate your time. Very, very interesting. Like, for me as a business owner as well, there's a lot of things to sort of take on board. I think, they say, for those people that are thinking about it or not sure where to start, just start self-employed, or firm owners that have never done this sort of thing before, I think just having a conversation, reaching out to you, having a conversation, knowing where to start, and you showing them how you working with you in terms of the honesty and trust that you're giving on the podcast has come across, and I'm sure that comes across with if somebody's working one-to-one with you from a business point of view or part of your program, then they'll get the same David, because I've got the same David from every experience I've had with you so far. So thanks very much for being very open, honest, and trusting on the podcast, David. I really appreciate that.
No problem at all. Thanks so much for having me on. It's been a real pleasure.
Are you an experienced mortgage advisor who is looking to go alone and set up your own firm? Is owning your own brand and business important to you? Do you keep putting off the decision because you just don't know where to start? Let me explain the My Brand, My Way program. This is aimed at experienced advisors who are looking to go alone and set up your own brand and business. So what does the My Brand, My Way program offer? First of all, you still receive the rates you would as if you went direct to a network. These also improve as you grow. You pay a monthly fee, which includes the compliance, indemnity, CRM and all your licenses. You would still own your own brand, your own clients and your own business. You are still creating your own legacy. The difference is you get my help, support and coaching in not only setting up your business and brand, I will help you grow. If that is something of interest to you, please get in touch so we can arrange an informal discussion.